Hey everybody, Darren here. So, this is my second take. Usually you don't get a second take on a live video, but this is take number 2. I'm not sure what happened, I got cut off. So we're going to start all over again, make believe the first one didn't happen. So we're cheering for the Wizards, hoping that they can pull it off against the Celtics. I'm taking a little break from the game to talk to you a little bit more about single dad life. And like I said, I'm trying to help you avoid some of the pitfalls that I fell into and maybe put you a little further ahead of the power curve. Today, what we're going to be talking about is debt. And debt obviously is a killer. It causes even more stress and more struggle that we don't need. So hopefully this can help you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I basically screwed up and dug myself deep into a hole, and exactly how I got out of the hole. So debt, the one thing you need to know about debt is, just like when you go to Las Vegas, the house always wins. So with debt, the banks always win. There's a reason why these banks make so much money and they are able to get so much interest out of you. So I was talking about, or I'm going to talk about, the rule of 72. Now I was just in Navy Federal Credit Union, and it's very interesting because I had already put this post together before I went into the credit union, and sitting right out there is this little piece of paper about the rule of 72. So the rule of 72, that's kind of basically how the money works for you or money works against you. And I had done a post about the slight edge, where the slight edge, it can work for you or work against you. And the rule 72, when you're investing, is fantastic because it's working in your favor. But when you're borrowing money and you're putting your purchases on credit cards, the rule 72 is working against you. I don't know about you, but I don't like to buy something, let's say for $1,000, and ultimately end up paying $3,000 for it, because that's how debt works. So the rule 72, let me teach you. So if you've never heard of it, the rule of 72 is you basically take your percent of interest and you divide 72 by it. So if you have a credit card at 6% interest rate and you divide 72 by 6, what the rule of 72 is going to tell you that it takes 12 years for that money to double. So in an investment, if you invest $1,000, it'll take approximately 12 years for that to become $2,000. It's not too bad. And when you have credit cards, the interest compounds daily. So the amount you owe is climbing, and then you make your minimum payment, and it brings it down a little drop, and then the amount is climbing. But here's where the credit cards really get you. A lot of credit cards charge a whopping 23% interest rate. You'll see that on a lot of the stores. You go to I don't want to use any names, but any of the large box stores, their credit cards, 23% interest rate. So basically every 3 years and change, the money you borrowed doubles. So if you borrowed $1,000, that the interest is accruing, and it easily doubles. And that's why it's so hard to get ahead of the banks. And they know that. They know that's how they get you, because you just pay the minimum, and the interest just has that principle you started with, that single purchase. You bought that TV for $1,000. It is just going up and up and up and up, and in the end, ultimately, you end up paying like $3,000 on a $1,000 TV. Now I'll tell you, way back in the day in law school, I thought, hey, you know what? I can just put everything on a credit card and I don't have to worry. As long as I can pay that minimum, I can live beyond my means. I can buy things. I didn't live extravagantly, but I paid for food. I paid anything I could pay for on a credit card, I paid for on a credit card. And by the time I finally got out of law school, I found myself $60,000 in debt. And for those of you in debt, you just know how horrible that is. Like when you start to realize, oh my God, there's no way. I'm never gonna be able to pay off $60,000. So obviously I panicked for a while and realized what a mess I had created. So I started doing what I do best. I started researching and trying to figure out a way that I can get myself out of this mess. So that's when I came along, Dave Ramsey and Mary Hunt and Susie Orman. I started reading all these books and learning, and they talk about snowball effect, or different ways that it's all the same strategy, but they just call it different things. So one of the first things I did was I called all my credit card companies and said, hey, you know what, I'm having some tough times here. Can you lower the interest rates? And amazingly, they like, okay, sure, no problem, because they like to keep you just above the fire. Like the fire is right at your feet. They don't want you falling into the fire, because then you declare bankruptcy and they lose their money. So that they want you to struggle a little, but they don't want you to fall into the fire. So they want you to keep paying those minimums, because they know they're making their money by you paying the minimums. But when you start to struggle and really get yourself in trouble with debt, they do try to help. So you can get them to maybe reduce the payments. You can get them to maybe reduce the debt. I highly recommend giving your creditors a call and seeing what they can do to help you. The other thing that you can do, and this is only if your credit is still okay, is you can transfer your debt to a lot of credit cards offer 0% interest for 6 months, 0% interest for 12 months. You want to try to cut that interest as much as possible, because that rule of 72 is kicking your ass. It's going to just keep driving you further and further into debt. And this is why the minimum payments, if you're paying 6%, your minimum payment is going to be much lower than if you're paying 23%. So you got to work with your creditors and see if you can reduce that interest rate so that you can get ahead of the game. So the way that Dave Ramsey and Mary Hunt and all the other financial gurus teach you how to pay off debt is basically you just make a list of all your creditors. I like to know percent of interest, and then the amount owed. Now this is no magic formula. You're not going to pay off $60,000 overnight. It took me a long time. I had to really cut everywhere I possibly could. I cut back on anything that I could, just so that I can be able to pay this debt off. And anytime I got extra money in, I paid it towards the debt. So what you do is you make a list of your creditors. So if you got let's just say Citibank, Bank of America, if you have a loan with let's just say USAA, whoever you have, then the interest rate, so 10%, 7%, 15%, whatever the interest rate is, so that and also when you call them, you know where you're at, what the interest that you owe or what rate of interest they're charging, so that you can negotiate to try to get them to lower that interest rate. So then you have like Best Buy, and you're outside your 0%, so they're hitting you with the 23% interest rate. So that's the amount of interest. Then we're going to take in the third column the amount you owe. So let's say you owe Best Buy 1,000, you owe USAA 500, you owe Bank of America 5,000, and you owe Citibank, let's just call it 7,500, just for fun. So now you know how much you owe everybody, your percent of interest, and I guess I should have had another column with minimum payments. So what you want to do is put these in order from the lowest amount owed to the most amount owed. So what we have here is we owe USAA $500, so they're going to go in the number 1 slot. Then we owe Best Buy 1,000, so they're going in the 2 slot. USAA 5,000, Citibank 7,500. So that's our order. So what we're going to do is we're going to take whatever we were paying these guys above the minimum, and we're going to consolidate it. So we're going to pay the minimum to Citibank, we're going to pay the minimum to Bank of America, and we're going to pay the minimum to Best Buy. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on USAA. So let's say now, instead of paying USAA, let's say the minimum was $50, we're going to start paying USAA $200. Whatever we can afford to pay, and paying the minimums on the others. And we're going to keep paying $200 until USAA is paid off. So in about 2 months or so, we'll have USAA paid off. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Best Buy that we owe $1,000, and let's say we were paying Best Buy $100. So we're going to take the $200 we were paying to USAA and add it to what we were paying Best Buy. So now we're paying $300 a month to Best Buy, plus any other extra money we have coming in, we're going to be paying Best Buy. So in about 3 more months, we'll have Best Buy paid off. Then we're going to take our $300 we were paying to Best Buy, and we're going to move it up to Bank of America. And let's say we were paying Bank of America on $5,000. Let's say we were paying $500, which is probably a lot for a minimum. $500 to Bank of America. We're going to add the $300. So now we're paying $800. And you can see we just keep snowballing up and up the debt ladder. So if you've got like 10 debts, you're just going to keep going from the smallest debt to the biggest debt, and you're going to be paying more and more and more. And that's basically the system I followed. I just tried to bring in more money any way I could. Working a little extra, like a second job, or maybe running a business, and just I worked very, very hard. It took me about and this is not an overnight thing. You're gonna have to really. It's gonna be a struggle. You're gonna have to focus every day, and the big key, and this is the big caveat. You can't accrue any more debt. If you continue to accrue more debt, then you're just going back into the banks. You're getting shackled by the bank, and you're just gonna be in servitude to the bank forever. Interest. I can't even fathom how much interest I paid over the course of the time paying this off. $60,000. I probably ended up paying probably $100,000 or more. That's my money. It could have been my money, that $40,000 or $50,000 that went to the banks because they were killing me with their interest rates. Now I'm debt free. I've learned my lesson. I never use credit cards. I use the American Express card because I have to pay that off every single month. I do have some of the credit cards from the airlines, but I never ever allow a balance. It's always zero every month because the banks, they're going to own you if you keep using the credit cards, and the interest rates that they charge are just crushing. So that's basically in a nutshell what I did. And I think that pretty much it's hard and it takes a lot of work, but I think almost any amount could be paid off. I mean, there is a point where the debt becomes too much, your income's too low, but there are ways. You're unfortunately gonna have to really batten down the hatches and be very, very disciplined. But I think it is possible using this method to pay off any debt. And like I said, I didn't invent this. This is from the financial gurus, from Dave Ramsey, Mary Hunt, Susie Orman. There's probably a whole bunch of other ones out there, but those are the 3 big ones that I studied, and I've managed to just keep the ship above water and not accrue any more debt and stay debt free. And hopefully you guys learn from my mistakes, and you don't get into debt in the first place. But if you are in debt, this is a very good method to pay it all off. Anyway, I got some good episodes coming up this week of Single Dad Life, and this is our episode on how to get out of debt. See you all soon.